Okay, so are you ready to dive into this?
I'm ready.
All right, so today we're going to be talking about toxins that are kind of lurking everywhere. And this is going to be a deep dive based on an interview on the Diary of a CEO podcast with Dr. Yvonne Burkart,
Right.
who was a toxicologist.
Yes.
And, you know, one of the things that really struck me right at the beginning of this interview is that she said she read some research that said that the human brain is now estimated to be 0.5% plastic by weight.
Wow.
Isn't that?
That's scary.
It's really scary, right?
Wow.
Like we knew that microplastics were everywhere, but to think that it's actually in our brains.
Yeah, and it's not just our brains, right? Like, they're finding it in other organs.
Yeah.
They're finding it in the penises of men.
Oh.
They're finding it in newborns.
Yeah.
And, there's this concept of bioaccumulation where as these plastics get smaller and smaller, they're able to penetrate deeper into our tissues.
Right, and they never
leave.
They never biodegrade. They just
Yeah, they just break down into smaller
and
smaller pieces.
Right, so they just accumulate.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's really disturbing.
Yeah, I mean, Dr. Yvonne Burkart really emphasizes this. She thinks that this is going to be one of the biggest threats to human health in the coming years.
Yeah, well, she seems very passionate about, you know, warning people about the dangers of environmental toxins in general.
Yes.
And it's interesting because she came to this from a personal place.
Right.
She was having some health struggles of her own, including fertility issues. And that really kind of led her down this path of, you know, questioning what she had been taught about, you know, the dose makes the poison.
Right.
She's like, well, maybe that's not always the case.
Yeah, and especially when you're talking about endocrine disruptors.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so endocrine disruptors are basically chemicals that can interfere with your hormones.
Okay.
And they can do this at very low doses.
Wow. So even small exposures can have a big impact.
Exactly. And what's really scary is that children are particularly vulnerable to endocrine disruptors because their bodies are still developing.
So their detoxification systems aren't fully...
They're not fully mature until about the age of 10.
Wow.
So they're much more susceptible to the effects of these chemicals.
And we're seeing this play out in the rising rates of childhood illnesses, right?
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of evidence to suggest that endocrine disruptors are contributing to things like childhood cancers, neurodevelopmental problems, obesity.
It's pretty alarming.
Yeah, absolutely.
So she talks about a lot of different everyday products that we really need to rethink. And I mean, some of this stuff is pretty ubiquitous. It's like, how do you avoid this?
Right.
One of the first things she goes after is nonstick cookware.
Yeah, Teflon.
Teflon.
Yeah, those PFAS chemicals.
Right.
They've been linked to a lot of different health problems like cancer, thyroid issues, immune deficiency.
Wow.
And these chemicals, they can leach into your food when you're cooking.
And even into the air, right?
And into the air.
Like if you overheat the pan or something.
Exactly. So it's not just about what you're eating, it's about what you're breathing as well.
So what does she recommend that we use instead?
Well, she's a big fan of stainless steel and cast iron.
Okay. Yeah, those seem
Those
like
are good alternatives.
safer alternatives.
Yeah. They might require a little bit more effort when you're cleaning up, but
Yeah.
your health is worth it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she also talks about plastic containers.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to microwaving food.
Right, because even if it says BPA free, there's still other chemicals in there that can leach out.
Exactly. And even BPA-free plastics, they can still leach microplastics.
Oh, wow.
So it's really best to avoid microwaving food in plastic altogether.
So what do we use?
Glass containers are a good alternative.
Okay.
You can also use ceramic.
Right.
But yeah, glass is probably the best option.
And how about, takeaway coffee cups? I mean, is that a problem?
Yeah, she actually talks about this. She says that the plastic lining in those cups can release thousands of microplastic particles into your drink within minutes.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty shocking.
Oh my gosh, I love my takeaway coffee.
I know it's hard to give up, but...
I guess it's time to invest in a good reusable cup.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. What else is on our hit list?
Aerosol deodorants and antiperspirants.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, those are a big no-no.
Okay.
First of all, they contain propellants that can be contaminated with benzene, which is a known carcinogen.
Right.
And then you've got the aluminum salts in antiperspirants, which have been linked to breast cancer.
Wow. Okay, so what are we supposed to use?
Well, she recommends looking for roll-on deodorants that use essential oils for fragrance.
Okay, so not just any.
Not just any fragrance.
Fragrance, because that could be a whole bunch of...
Right, fragrance is often used as a catch-all term to hide a whole bunch of chemicals that they don't want to disclose.
Oh, wow.
So you really want to look for products that specifically say essential oils.
Okay. Interesting, because, I've been trying to be better about reading labels, but I never really thought about fragrance being a problem.
Yeah, fragrance is a big one.
Okay, so I'm taking notes. Fragrance is bad.
Fragrance is bad unless it specifies essential oils.
Okay, good to know, because it's in everything.
It's in everything: laundry detergent, air fresheners, even children's toys.
Oh my gosh, that's scary. And she's particularly concerned about the use of fragrance in children's products.
Right, because children are much more vulnerable to these chemicals
Yeah.
and their bodies are still developing, so it's really important to protect them as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing she talks about is conventional menstrual products.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so tampons and pads,
Uh-huh.
they can contain heavy metals and fragrances.
Oh, wow, I never thought about that.
Yeah, it's pretty disturbing when you think about it.
Yeah.
So she recommends switching to organic cotton alternatives.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and she also talks about clothing.
Really?
Yeah, synthetic clothing like polyester, nylon, acrylic.
Okay.
Not only can these fabrics release microplastics,
Oh, gosh.
but they can also contain BPA.
Wow. Okay. I am learning so much today.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is. And so she recommends that we stick to natural fibers like organic cotton.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. I'm starting to feel a little bit overwhelmed. Like,
What's a lot?
there's so much to avoid. Well, what are we supposed to do?
It's not about being perfect.
Right.
It's about making small changes
Okay.
and reducing your exposure wherever you can.
Okay.
But she does have some more tips for proactive things that we can do to create a less toxic life.
Okay, good, because I definitely need some actionable advice here.
All right, so let's talk about those.
Okay.
One of the most important things is filtering your water.
Okay. I have a Brita pitcher. Is that enough?
Well, it's a start, but you really want to choose a filter that specifically targets endocrine disruptors, fluoride, and microplastics.
Okay, so I need to do a little research and, upgrade my filter situation.
Yeah, there are a lot of options out there.
Okay.
So it's worth doing some digging.
Okay, noted filter upgrade.
All right. Another big one is cooking at home more often
Okay.
with fresh, whole ingredients.
So ditch the processed food.
Ditch the processed food.
Okay.
Yeah. And, another bonus there is you're reducing your plastic consumption as well.
Right. Less packaging.
Exactly. Double win.
Okay, so cooking at home.
Yeah. And then when you are buying produce, try to choose organic whenever possible.
Right.
That'll help to minimize your exposure to pesticides and heavy metals.
Got it. Organic produce.
And then, we talked about reading labels.
Right. Becoming a label detective.
Exactly. So you want to be on the lookout for that sneaky fragrance ingredient.
Right. Fragrance bad, unless it says essential oils.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then one more thing that's really empowering is you can actually boost your body's natural detoxification systems.
Oh, really? So I don't need to go do a juice cleanse.
No juice cleanses necessary.
Okay.
Simple things like getting enough sleep, regular exercise, and eating a diet rich in sulfur-containing foods can all help.
Okay, so like leafy greens, cruciferous veggies.
Exactly.
Good.
And these foods help to increase your glutathione levels.
Glutathione, what is that?
Glutathione is a powerful antioxidant that plays a key role in detoxification.
Okay, so it's like a superhero for your liver.
Exactly.
Usually.
I love it.
Yeah, so, it's really amazing that we can actually support our bodies in this way through lifestyle choices.
Right. It's not all doom and gloom.
No, it's not about living in fear. It's about making informed choices.
Right. And taking control.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've talked about a lot of practical steps we can take, but I'm curious about, the bigger picture. Like, what would a truly toxin-free world look like?
Well, the host of the podcast asked Dr. Burkart that very question.
Okay.
And her response was really interesting.
What did she say?
She said that in a toxin-free world, people would be vibrantly healthy.
Okay.
They would be free from chronic diseases.
So like cancer, autoimmune disorders, infertility?
All of that would be the exception, not the norm.
Wow. That's a powerful vision.
It makes you realize how much we've just accepted a certain level of illness as normal.
Right. Like it's just part of life.
Yeah.
But what if it didn't have to be that way?
Right. What if we could prevent so much of this suffering?
Exactly.
It also makes you think about, the true cost of our modern lifestyle.
Uh-huh.
Like all the conveniences, the products we surround ourselves with, are they worth it if they're slowly poisoning us?
Right. It's a trade-off we've made without fully understanding the consequences.
Yeah, and I think that's what Dr. Burkart is trying to expose.
Exactly. She's not saying we need to go live off the grid.
Right.
But she is urging us to be more conscious, more discerning.
About the choices we make.
Exactly.
And it's not just about individual choices, right?
Right. It's about collective action.
Like demanding stricter regulations.
Exactly.
Supporting companies that prioritize safety and sustainability.
Yeah, and educating ourselves and others about the hidden dangers.
Because this goes way beyond just swapping out your Teflon pan or filtering your water.
It does. It's a much bigger issue.
And we need to address it on a systemic level.
Absolutely.
Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a challenge.
Okay.
What steps, big or small, can you take to move us closer to that vision of a toxin-free world?
It's a good question.
It starts with awareness, but it doesn't end there.
Right.
It's about turning knowledge into action.
Making informed choices.
Raising our voices.
Demanding better.
For ourselves, our children, and the planet.
Well said.
That's it for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
It was great talking to you.
Likewise.
We hope you found it informative, empowering, and maybe even a little bit inspiring.
Until next time.
Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep making a difference.